Hello. No doubt many of you watch sports, and no doubt many of you have the most memorable moment or memorable game when it comes to watching sports. For me, it was 1996. It was a Monday night, and the University of Missouri was playing the University of Kansas in basketball. It was a 3 overtime classic game I went to with my parents, and it'll be a game I never forget. And the Tigers won, of course. Now, the Tigers and the Jayhawks share what is known as one of the biggest rivalries west of the Mississippi River. It has existed since 1891. And today, we sit here asking if losing this rivalry is worth switching conferences. That is correct. The Missouri Tigers have been asked by the Big Ten Conference to switch conferences from the Big 12 and into their conference instead. Now, I am strongly against this move of conference, and I believe that the Missouri Tigers should stay in the Big 12. And I will give many reasons why. One of the main reasons I believe is that the Big 12 and its benefit the Missouri Tigers better than the benefits they would receive from the Big 10. I also believe that by switching conferences, we would lose many recruits, and a lot of the recruits we get are from Texas. I will go into that deeper later. Lastly, I believe the most important part of this would be losing our rivalry with the University of Kansas. We cannot afford to lose this rivalry as it is the most important thing in our athletic program. Now, the Missouri Tigers have many top 25 teams, and a lot of this can be attributed to the tough conference they play in. The Big 12 is no doubt a better conference, and I will show you how and why today. Now, in 2008, the Missouri Tigers football team received over $8.4 million from the Big 12 Conference. That is $1 million more than the last place team in the Big 12 Conference. The Missouri Tigers finished 6th in the Big 12 Conference and made $1 million more than the 12th place team. Now, this happens in the Big 12 because they choose to give their money to the teams in the conference based on performance. So, the better you play, the more money you get. This is different than the Big Ten. The Big Ten automatically splits their money up. I think staying in the Big 12, we will be able to continue to receive more money than we would in the Big Ten due to the contracts and the way they are set up in the Big 12. Now, I also believe that staying in the Big 12 suits us because the Big 12 is looked at as a better conference. We get into more bowl games. This year, the Big 12 Conference had 7 teams in bowl games compared to the 6 in the Big 10. And last year had more teams in the NCAA tournament. And this year also has the highest, the Big 12 Conference as a whole has the highest RPI in the nation in basketball compared to 5th place Big 10. So, by switching conferences, we would lose a competitive edge and a benefits edge. Now, a lot of our success and our competitiveness comes from our strong recruiting base. And our strong recruiting base inside of Missouri is also due to the fact that we have a pipeline of strong recruits coming from the state of Texas. Texas is one of the biggest states in the nation and has the most recruits, typically, for all sports. Now, by switching to the Big Ten, I think we would be in serious jeopardy of losing all these recruits. We must be able to hold on to these recruits to keep our team strong and in the top 25. By switching conferences to the Big Ten, we would lose recruits because in the Big Ten, you would not be able to play teams such as Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech, to name a few. There are over 4 teams in the Big 12 in Texas and 2 in Oklahoma. So that gives recruits a chance to play in front of their families and is a big selling pitch to come to the University of Missouri for them. I believe that also we would lose them because the Big Ten is more of a northern conference compared to the Big 12, which covers a vast majority of the Midwest, North and South. Now, another thing to think about is that the Missouri Tigers football team has 33 players alone from the state of Texas, compared to the entire Big Ten, who has 11 players. That's 12 teams and 11 players compared to us having 33. And I think by switching conferences again from the Big 12 to the Big 10, we would lose them and the selling point of being able to play in front of their families. And although it is very important to recruit from Texas, the most important thing we have here at the University of Missouri is our rivalry. Our rivalry with the Kansas Jayhawks is by far the biggest rivalry I believe in sports. It is always very intense and heated games no matter how good the other team is compared to the other. Now, by switching conference, we would lose this ability to play the Kansas Jayhawks so much, and we would lose our rivalry. Currently, being in the same conference as Kansas, we play them typically twice a year in most sports. Now, by switching to the Big Ten, we would have to schedule them non-conference, which could be very difficult, and we would only get to play them once, if at any, times during the year. Now, I feel that switching conferences would definitely hurt this, and we would have to stop doing our yearly border showdown, which is a competition between both schools in all sports. I think it would be very, very hard for Missouri fans to take not being able to play Kansas and try to beat them every year. Now, I feel that the Big Ten is not the conference for us to switch to. We've been in the Big 12 since 1907. Think about that. 1907 to 2010 is an extremely long time. Now, for us to walk away from that tradition and pride we've built in our conference, I think would be devastating. We must maintain the long-standing relationships with the other schools in our conference and continue to build the Big 12 to be even stronger than it is already. There is no doubt there are benefits to the Big Ten. They do have their own cable network. But, with proper funding and money, there is no reason that the Big 12 cannot have their own cable network as well. Now, I think a lot of people focus too much on the money aspects and they forget about the individual games and rivalries. Hopefully today, I've been able to show you why our rivalries are so important to us. We've been playing Kansas since 1891, and to lose such an important game like that, I think would take away a lot of the luster that the University of Missouri has when they play games. Hopefully today you've learned a lot about not only the Big Ten, but the Big 12 Conference, and why the Missouri Tigers are better suited to stay in the Big 12 Conference instead of switching to the Big Ten.